Shifting focus to India, Tata Power reporting a 36% rise in its Q2 consolidated net profit on year as it saw strength across its business segments. But operating profit at India's largest power generation company saw a decline of 17% on year due to a rise in the cost of imported coal. Tata Power is focusing on expanding its renewables business and is aiming to scale up its green portfolio to 80% by 2030 from the current 32%. In fact, I'm pleased to say that on that note, we are joined by the man behind the business, Praveer Sinha, is the CEO and Managing Director at Tata Power, joining us live from Mumbai. Mr. Sinha, it's great to have you on the show, sir. Thank you very much for your time. Before we talk about your earnings and your business, you'd understand that the news at hand is about the coal shortage situation in India. And so somebody who's directly linked to that situation, I want you to give us clarity on whether this is a seasonal crunch or a deeper crisis, a structural crisis that India is facing. Your own Mundra UMPP is now up and running, sir, and is supplying to key states that have been affected by the power shortage. But how do you see the situation unfolding from here?
Good morning, Tanveer, and thank you for having me on the show. First of all, thank you for the good results that you have mentioned. And I think this is the 8th consecutive quarter in which we have shown a growth in profit. And while the operating profit, as you mentioned, is lower, it is also because the profit that we get from the coal mines, that comes directly into the PAT and does not go into the operating profit. And that's why when we see the cluster of coal and CGPL on its own, otherwise is profitable, but just on standalone CGPL was lower. So that's the reason that the profit has gone up. The operating profit is showing a little lower level. But I think consistency of performance in all our business is now the hallmark of Tata Power, and I think this will continue in future too. You rightly mentioned that there is a crunch of coal, and typically every year we have this challenge, especially during monsoon, when the coal mines, which are open cast mines, they get flooded, and it takes a lot of time to dewater the water from the coal mines. And also the movement through rail gets badly impacted. Unfortunately, this year, not many of the coal generating plants had stocked up enough coal for a longer period of time, which they typically do during the summer months or prior to the summer months. And because of this, any delay or any even a small shortage leads to a situation where we are neck to neck as far as the coal availability is there in the plants. But I should mention to you that a lot of steps have been taken by the government in last 3 weeks, wherein they have ramped the production and also the transportation. And the average, which was looking very low in the initial phase of less than 3 days for nearly 70% of the plants, has now increased to 5 days. So this is expected to continue for another 2 to 3 weeks till the winter sets in and the demand reduces and the generation capacity will come down. So this is more of a seasonal. We will, of course, have a similar challenge again during winter months in late December and January when the fog comes in. But I'm sure by that time, most of the plants will have stocked up enough to take care of any contingency.
And so how are you thinking about what the impact of all of this could be on coal prices in India? I mean, we're looking at what's happening in China, right, with the authorities intervening, engaging with coal producers, and that's had an impact. I mean, you've seen thermal coal futures come off quite sharply over the course of the last 7 sessions. Coal prices, imported coal prices in India peaked. But I just wonder what that means really going forward for the trend here for imported coal as well as domestic coal.
So India has nearly 560 million tons of coal, which is used in the domestic power companies. The import is very small quantity that takes place, and most of the coal in India is, of course, controlled through a pricing system by CIL and their subsidiaries. So the coal prices per se in the domestic market is not going up. Of course, whatever coal comes from abroad for blending purpose, that will get impacted, but that's a very small quantity right now. Most of the coal plants are not importing coal, excepting some of the plants which are on imported coal, like our CGPL. And we fortunately had some stock lying with us, about 1 million ton, which we are using for generating power, and some coal that we are trying to source will help us to bring down the average cost of coal to a more manageable level. So I think we don't expect any impact on coal prices in India, because the Indian production costs have not gone up, and they will continue to remain at the same level.
And so we're in the midst of a busy festive season. It's turning out to be quite exciting in India around Diwali. I believe that the overall electricity demand is still outstripping supply. You have stepped up for supplying to Punjab and Gujarat. I think the other hit states are Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Haryana. Could you walk us through whether or not there could be rationalization here in terms of supply demand?
So last week, or in fact 2 weeks back, with the intervention of the government, we started our coal-based plant, Mundra plant, and 3 units are presently operating. It is right now giving to Gujarat and Rajasthan. Punjab had taken in between for a few weeks. And we are now available for all the 5 states, and based on their requirement, we can ramp up the generation capacity. We also believe that going forward, once the coal prices stabilize in the international market, we will be in a position to supply, and so also the other imported coal-based plants. So I think on an average, we will find that the imported coal-based plants generation capacity will get enhanced. And we also, that will to that extent increase the power which is available in the grid. Similarly, the domestic coal is going to get increased. And after the festive season, we typically see that by mid-November, the demand reduces drastically as the winter steps in. And we do not expect that we will have a huge shortage going forward.
Okay. I also want to talk about your renewables energy initiatives and, you know, the kind of focus the business has there. As a traditional energy player, how are you thinking about furthering the cause here and investing more? The market is very much looking forward to, and that's actually getting reflected in your stock price too, which has gone up 300% this year, on essentially the clean energy subsidiary IPOing or coming to the market. So could you walk us through the scenario there, because you are looking at boosting your renewable energy portfolio 6-fold by 2030, sir?
Yeah, and this is not only increasing the portfolio in the large utility scale, but I think what one needs to see is that we are increasing our stake in all the other segments of renewable business. Our EPC has gone up. This year, in the first 2 quarters itself, we have crossed more than 4,000 crores of revenue. And we expect that this will go up further as we go ahead in the business. We also expect that our rooftop business, again, what we have done in 2 quarters is much more than what we did in the full last year. Secondly, our solar pumps have gone up. So I think in all the portfolios of our renewable business, we are doing exceedingly well, and we expect that this will continue to grow in the coming quarters and coming years. We strongly believe also that the renewable will play a very, very critical role in socializing the generation of power and the usage of power by the consumers. And the opportunity that it provides to the consumers that they can produce and use themselves and also sell to the grid is a great game changer in terms of how the renewable penetration will happen in the country. So we are very, very excited about this opportunity. We feel that not only the large utility scale, which is the more B2B solution or B2G solution, but also the B2C business that we are doing with the consumers and the distributed generation will play a critical role going forward.
And also the very integral role that you're playing, Mr. Sinha, when it comes to the EV story in India, especially EV infrastructure in setting up charging stations. Give us your plan out there in terms of the rollout, the investment, as also how soon, from an infrastructure standpoint, can India be EV ready?
So from our side, we have been taking large steps for EV charging infrastructure. We are right now 1,000 public chargers and nearly 5,000 home chargers that we have put, apart from chargers in bus stations and fleet owners. And we feel that from our present 1,000, we will end the year with more than 2,000 this year itself. And we should be about 10,000 by 2025. We are looking at growing this at a much faster pace as the penetration of electric vehicle takes place. So our objective is that the charging infrastructure should not be a deterrent for people to buy their electric vehicle. We have an ambitious plan now to put EV chargers right across from Kashmir to Kanyakumari on the highway, the 3,600 kilometer highway, and also from east to west up to Rajasthan from northeast. So we will provide a seamless opportunity for customers to drive anywhere across the country without bothering about where they will charge and how much they will charge.
Right, and final questions on this business stream, that is the IPO, the much-awaited IPO of the clean energy arm, that is Tata Power Solar. Have you firmed up plans on that front?
No, not as yet, but it's very much in advanced stage of finalization. And as soon as we finalize, we will come and inform that.
Well, we hope you give us the opportunity to speak to you again at that time, because that's a story that is very close to our hearts and is something that we are very closely following right here on CNBC. Thank you very much, Mr. Sinha, for joining us this morning.